Right, good to see everybody. I think we're just having most people come in and join us now. I think we've got quite a few people scheduled to join us today. So welcome from wherever you are in the world. Just while you're coming in, some quick introductions. So my name's Gemma Kay. I'm the Senior Associate Director of the Specialist kind of Executive Diplomas and Masters portfolio. So I've been at the school around 10 years now, and actually originally started working within the Diplomas portfolio, spent a bit of time working on our Executive MBA program, and then stepped into this role, kind of heading up the teams of professional staff that look after our executive diplomas. And there's lots of reasons that I love my job here at the school. One of them is the great people and faculty and students that I work with, and also because I'm just a huge fan of these particular programs and degrees that we offer at the school, the format they have, the content we have, and the diversity of people that we have joining them. So it's great to be able to talk you through them today. You'll see there's quite a few people joining us. Some of us are in the same room. If you see me looking sideways. I've got members of the recruitment and admissions team here with us. We've got 4 of our wonderful alumni joining us, and they'll introduce themselves shortly. We're all delighted to kind of welcome you virtually to the school, so you can find out a little bit more about these programs. So just to get going, we'd like to hear a bit from you really about what interests you most about the executive diplomas. So hopefully you can see this poll that's coming up on your screen that we're going to launch now. And I wonder if you can just tick your top 3 motivations, just to tell us a little bit more about what you would like to get out of the diplomas for studying an executive diploma. And we'll just give you a second or two to do that. Yeah, the results coming through. Okay. So let's look at Kate's screen a little bit here. They're still coming in, so let's do another 10 seconds. There we go. Okay, should we share that on screen, Kate, so people can see? Okay, so it's quite broad actually. So we've got, as you'd expect, one of the things that people are often looking for in a development program is to get a kind of expanded knowledge, and particularly that's relevant for the executive diplomas because they allow you can have broad general management programs on executive MBAs or MBAs or similar, but the diplomas kind of allow you a kind of a deep dive into a particular specialist area, which is good for your own knowledge and also building your profile. Lots of people are recognizing that they would kind of expand their global network. And also what's particularly unique about these programs is it does give you an opportunity to have an accredited qualification from Oxford as well. So this is something we see quite a bit. I'd be interested, if we were here in the room, I'd ask the 2 people who said other what else they would include for those reasons. But I think it just might be useful for all of those on the call thinking about why they want to do a diploma, to see what others' motivations are as well. Right, should we close that poll? Fantastic. I'm just going to talk you briefly through starting with what makes me think these programs unique, because there's obviously lots of great schools and great programs available, but not many are kind of embedded in a university like Oxford, which gives you the opportunity versus a standalone school to have that kind of breadth and depth in the education that you have. This is the kind of image people typically think of when they think of the University of Oxford. So this is the Radcliffe camera, for those who don't know. It forms part of the Bodleian Library. It's built in, I think, around the 16th century, so around halfway through our history. And the university is made up of 39 colleges and around 100 departments, of which Side Business School is one. So coming onto a program like this, you have, the Side Business School will be your main home. You'll be an associate member of a college, but it does give you the opportunity to go through that whole ecosystem as well. The business school is around 25 years old. So Side Business School is part of the social sciences division. The university is split into 4 divisions. Social sciences is the largest division, and the school, I believe, is the largest department within that. So we're arguably an influential part of the university, despite being around relatively less time. This is our flagship building on Park End Street. You can see at the top there, that's where we've got the library. And this is where all of our executive diplomas are delivered. This is actually our new Global Leadership Centre, which is in the process of being built in Oxford, which is also going to be part of our future as well. So this is an extended part of the school, and really summarises how we're looking to grow and develop, and ensuring that we've got the facilities and the capabilities to help our students develop for the future as well. So just to look specifically at your diplomas now and this particular degree that we offer here at Oxford. So we have 5 executive diplomas. Each of them have been developed by taking parts of the executive MBA and developing them into qualifications in their own right. They're standalone qualifications, but they're taught at master's level. So they're all part-time programs. They're all delivered here in person. And over 12 months, there's 4 modules of 4 days where people would come together at the business school and study. And obviously there are accredited programs, which means you gain a qualification, and we celebrate that achievement in a ceremony with you, but also means, of course, that they're assessed. So there'll be various different assessments that you would need to complete in order to earn your executive diploma. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on each particular program that we offer and the subjects, because you'll be able to see, you'll be able to see the details of each of those independently, depending on what you're looking for. But you can see the headline subjects here that you'll cover. And I wonder, it'd just be interesting to us to have an understanding, Kate, I don't know if we've got a poll, about which executive diploma that you're most interested in. So we get a sense of, who on the call is most interested in which program. So I think if you launch that, Kate, and we give everyone a moment or two. Alumni, I don't think you can choose, unfortunately, otherwise I'm sure you would all choose your own. But it'll be interesting to see for you, I guess, as well, how many people select your particular diploma. Okay, they're still coming in, so I'll give you another 10 seconds. And it may be lots of people are interested in several, which is it's just quite typical. And this might be a call for you to try to work out which is the one is most appropriate for you. Okay, let's end it. Let's launch the poll. Okay, interesting. So lots of people interested in the diploma in strategy innovation. We actually have 2 streams of that, so that's reflected in the number of students that join that each year. Diploma in artificial intelligence for business, that's 27%. That's actually a relatively new program, so it'll be coming into its 3rd year, and you can see how that's highly relevant at the moment. Diploma in financial strategy and diploma in global business have got about a quarter of the vote each. And about a third of you are also considering the diploma in organisational leadership, which, coming through the last few years that we've seen increasing interest from people in that as well. How do we develop our teams and develop that resilience within them? So let's close that down. And then moving on through. So during the year that you're with us, it's worth just thinking about the different things that you would do. So each of the 4 days is paced apart. As I said, they're all in person, and around 6 weeks before each module, you'll receive some pre-work in preparation for that subject coming up. You can see, I don't think we've got the dates here, but we can show them up. Oh, the dates aren't on this slide, but all the dates are available at this stage for you to go on and see how they fit with your schedule. There's a self-study commitment of, we would say, around 5 to 8 hours a week, which would be completing assessments or preparing for exams, pre-reading, and that might be something you're curious about, and I suspect some of our alumni may be able to help with. And so how do they manage that, or how much do they realistically do? I mean, some people do a lot more, some people seem to do a bit less, but that'll be an interesting question to put to them. And then following each of your modules, you'll complete a final integrative assignment, which is 6,000 words, where you have the opportunity to apply your learning and bring it all together into a piece that you can apply to your organization or a particular challenge that you're facing. You'll also see new for this year, we're launching some co-curricular initiatives as well, which will be online elements of the program that will happen in between modules that will be open up to the whole diploma community. And we'll touch you a little bit more on that later. We'd also like to share a timetable, an example timetable from the week. So this is a typical week here at the school. You can see that there's sessions where you'll be in class. It's very interactive. You're in a small lecture theatre, but it's a very interactive teaching style. There'll also be different kind of Oxford activities that we do. So you would go for a college dinner on the Thursday night of each module. Or sorry, is it on Thursday or Friday? The Friday night of each module. And you would also have other possibly speakers that come in or other activities that you do with your class. But roughly you would be in classes or working group work from 9 to 5 each day that you're here at the school. People are often curious about assessment, understandably. We think this is actually a manageable program for you to complete while you're working. But equally, if you haven't done any academic study for some while and you need to complete these various assignments, it's always good to plan in time to do your reading and make time to prepare for the assessment that you complete on the program. There's 3 kind of short exam-like assignments, but you complete them at home in a kind of short assignment in between modules, often case study based, and within that you obviously revisit those themes from that program and answer those questions. It's a little bit different for the Diploma in Financial Strategy, where for one of the modules, because it's very quantitative in nature, you're assessed by a sit-down examination. And then in terms of how you receive those marks, all our assessments are double marked and kind of governed by examinations boards, sometimes a little bit of weight to receive those results. When they come through, you will either have a pass, a fail, or a distinction. We're confident if you're accepted on the programme, you will be able to pass, and many people get distinctions. For any reason anyone does fail, you are able to resit that as well. Maybe at the end also we'll ask our alumni to talk a little bit about their final assignments. Many people looking at this program are actually, have decided that they don't want to do an executive MBA, or they've already done an MBA, or this is not what they're looking for. They're looking for much more of a kind of deep dive accredited program. But for those who are thinking about it in the future, because the diplomas have been developed by taking elements of the executive MBA and almost developing them into qualifications in their own right, there is a pathway to that program. So anybody who completes the diploma can go on within a certain time frame, I think around 5 years, to embark on an executive MBA if they successfully apply for that and get some exemptions. So that may not be for everybody, but it's sometimes a question that we get, where can I go next if I do a program like this? So your networks, there's a variety of different networks at Oxford Said, which you will have the opportunity to be part of. So obviously the closest bond you'll form is with your class. We're also looking to do much more actually than I think we've done in the past in terms of bringing our cross-diploma cohorts together across the school. And of course you become a member of the Oxford Business Alumni as well. But let me give you a few more stats on those various different elements. So this is the typical class profile for a diploma. So I'd say across the portfolio you're looking between 40 to up to 60-ish participants in each class. We have really strong diversity at Oxford across different sectors, hugely global. So you look 20 plus different nationalities being in class. And also one of the things that we really like about the executive diplomas, or actually our faculty really like, is they're normally one of the most experienced classes we actually get of all the class profiles across our programs. The executive diplomas just tend to have that little bit more experience. And of course, we'd like gender parity in class, and we're working towards that. But we're proud on most of the classes we have really good representation from women as well. And this just gives you a sense of the different perspectives and also the kind of experience levels in the class. We'll always have a few people that are maybe kind of early career stages, and we'll have other people, have got a lot more experience. but you can see roughly, I mean, the average age is around 40 or so. And people tend to be, have to meet the admissions criteria, but you'll see people in kind of generally senior management roles, maybe at board level or just below it, or maybe really high potential as well. So yes, good mix, public sector, private sector. People want to advance in their career, move in their career, maybe start up something themselves, you know, that are entrepreneurs, or just at a point where they'd like to reflect and go on and do something different or better. I mentioned how global the group is, and you can see a kind of typical representation here. So we'll have people coming in from all over the world, and that really does help, I think, in class discussions, bringing those, you know, different perspectives to those conversations, and also enabling anybody coming onto the programme to build a network that's really interesting and valuable to them in the future. And talking of future networks, you would also be able to become full lifelong members of the Oxford Business Alumni Network. This is an active global network. We have alumni reunion weekends, which are invited to after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and so on. They also run various different in-person and online events, locally, globally. There's an annual London OBA dinner, for example. There's also termly alumni town halls as well, LinkedIn groups, and so on. Here on this slide, you do see the different chapters that we have around the world, and our diplomas students and alumni, I should say, are very active in this network. So we have diploma alumni that sit on the advisory council, and that are alumni ambassadors. So there's lots of opportunities if that's something that may interest you in the future. And finally, I think, before I pass across to Laura to tell you a bit about the admissions process, and then we can chat through to our alumni on the call. One of the kind of key reasons people sometimes look towards Oxford is because you get that whole experience, which can mean lots of different things to different people. But one of them is that you'd be associate member of a college. And all diplomas, so if you want a matriculated degree program, so not one of these diplomas, but an executive MBA or a master's program, you become, there's a class where everybody's a member of different colleges. For our diploma students, each diploma has got a relationship with a college, which enables those students on that diploma to become associate college members. So if you are looking at studying the diploma in AI for business or the diploma in global business, you would become associate members of Jesus College, which is quite an interesting one if you are looking at what we sometimes call DIP AI, because Sir Nigel Shadbolt is the principal of Jesus College, and he's the chairman of the Open Data Institute, worked closely with Tim Berners-Lee, and for other students, whether you're on diploma in financial strategy or the diploma in organizational leadership, you'll become members of Pembroke College, which is one of the first colleges to elect a fellow in management studies, long before Said existed, but as a result has a long relationship with the business school. And finally, if you were one of the many people on the call that was looking at the diploma in strategy and innovation, you would join St Edmund Hall, otherwise known as Teddy Hall. And this is, it's got some beautiful architecture. I think it's got the last surviving medieval academic hall at the university, and it's got a great sense of community there. In addition to your studies, in terms of the areas of kind of enrichment you'd have when you were here, there's various different speakers that you may have coming to speak on your programme. Some of these are the recent speakers that you've had at the school. And often, actually, many of these have been arranged and kind of facilitated or set up by our students based on their networks, based on discussions they've had at modules. Others have been school-wide. So Alex here, where he was a school-wide speaker that we had. So there may be speakers that come to the school, there may be other ones that are available across the diploma, or there may be just somebody in your class who is going to bring in their boss, who's going to talk to you all about something that's of interest to everybody. And then new for 2023, I mentioned before some online sessions that we're going to be running in between modules, and that's going to be the Executive Insights and Impact series. So these are kind of co-curricular opportunities for you to join online sessions across the diploma community. And there'll be 4 intermodular faculty sessions to complement your studies, which will be different areas of strategic thinking or management to enrich your time with us. And then we'll also have 3 personal development sessions. So this is the Impact series. And these are new initiatives where you'll get insight into how you can leverage your studies and how you can make the most in areas such as managing your career, building your personal brand, personal impact and storytelling. And these will be staggered throughout the year. And I'd strongly encourage you to attend. The contributors that we have here have worked across the school and I've received fantastic feedback from other students on the value of their input in terms of building your own impact as an executive. So we'd encourage people to come and attend these optional sessions. Now I'll pause there and I may pass on to Laura, who's going to tell us a little bit more about the application requirements.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Gemma. So I'll just quickly take you through the application and admission requirements. So as you can see here, we ask for a minimum of 5 years relevant work experience and a good undergraduate degree. So that's a 2-1 or equivalent. If you don't have a degree or didn't get such a result, you can still apply, but we'd want to see particularly strong work experience. So if you have any questions about that, please do get in touch and we can review and offer advice on a case-by-case basis. And finally, we ask for proof of English language ability if English isn't your first language. But there are some exemptions for this. So if you recently studied in English or you use English in a professional capacity on a daily basis, you can apply for a waiver. Again, there's more information on our website, or feel free to speak to a member of the team and we can offer some advice and help. So if you would like to apply, you can do so online using the link on our website. And there's a few pieces of information that we need uploaded as part of your application. So as you can see here, we need an up-to-date CV detailing your professional and educational background. We need 2 references, so 2 people who can comment on your experience and suitability for the programme. We generally see 2 professional referees, but if you have studied recently, you can include an academic one, that's absolutely fine. And we contact them on your behalf and ask them to upload a letter. We also need your transcripts for every degree that you list on your CV. So that's the breakdown in grades from your degree. And we need to see those transcripts in English. And then there are 2 short essays. They're 500 words, so they're not too long. The first one focuses on your motivations for applying for the particular program that you've chosen. And the other is more about your current role and your main achievements. And then finally, as I mentioned, it's the proof of the English language ability if applicable. So once submitted and your application is complete, it will be sent for review and you'll hear back from us pretty quickly, so normally in a matter of weeks. Great, so moving on. The year is flying by and we have some key dates that I want to mention. So first of all, we do accept applications on a rolling basis, so you can apply at any time. But as you can see, we are approaching some of the final deadlines for our programmes. So the 5th of December is the final application round for the Diploma in Financial Strategy and the Diploma in Global Business. And the 2nd of January is the final deadline for the other 3 diplomas, so Organisational Leadership, Strategy and Innovation and Artificial Intelligence for Business. So if you are keen to join the incoming class, I would say don't leave it so late if you can. We've received a high number of applications for all of our programs this year and we do have a limited number of spaces. It's good to secure your place and to start preparing to join the class really as soon as you can, and get you set up with all the reading materials. A good time to start from January onwards. So last of all, before we move over to the panel, you can see here the team and the different member of our team that you should get in contact with for each program. We're all really happy to help, offer any advice, have an introductory meeting or review your application, review your CV and such. So please do get in contact with us if we can help at all. Lovely. So we'll move back and onto the panel.
Lovely.
There we go. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Laura. I hope that was useful. I hope those headshots that come up, because it was compared to how you look on the actual call. You're professional. I'm going to pass over to our panel now, which I'm so grateful that can join us. And I think people have been putting questions into the Q&A, and maybe some of my colleagues here can flag ones that would be good. But I don't know if we just want to kick off by introducing everybody, for everyone saying just a little bit about themselves and I guess what their motivations were for coming onto the program that they chose. So maybe I'll just go around as we see it on screen. And Lena, is it okay if I come to you first?
Okay, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Let's say. So, motivation.
Bear with us, Lena.
Yeah.
Try again.
How is it now?
Perfect.
Okay.
Good to go.
Good to go. Okay, thanks. Motivation. It was way into the COVID story when I decided to join Oxford. I really, really wanted to do something. I bet everyone had this this experience, so I wanted to study, and I was searching for the best place to get into more data related topics, more fashion hype things. So I landed up in the DPI conspect, and I said Oxford must be the best place for me. So that's how I decided to try. Honestly speaking, I didn't think it was even possible. But on one very nice November, which was also my birthday, I got the invitation letter. And that's how it started. Yeah, I guess. Lots of nice memories afterwards.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lena. Should we go down to Ishtiaq next?
Thank you, Gemma. Hi, everyone. Ishtiaq here. Should I say there's a bit of a story, and some of the members at SIDE would remember I was possibly one of the students who did research analysis and paralysis to make a decision to come to Oxford. So I almost did a couple of pages of analysis to find out whether Oxford was right for me. And I was making a decision between going to the US to study something or coming to Oxford. And I'm glad that I chose that for sheer reason that Oxford is magical, of course, but then what I get from my class and what I get from the experience of being at Oxford is just phenomenal. But to the question, my motivation was, as you would see, I work for HSBC Bank. I'm in a role of driving innovation and strategy within the bank. So it's fair, or should I say, on reflection, I could claim or would have claimed that I know everything about innovation and strategy because I was doing that at HSBC. To then pick up a course and then challenge myself to unlearn some of the things that I was doing on my day-to-day, and then academically learn something, plus also learn from my cohort and my colleagues, was possibly the best decision I made, because everything that I was doing, I was thinking that I was doing the best thing in the context of what I was doing. But then as you go through the experience, and I'm a student this year in the DIPSI class of 2022, and every session that I have, every hour that I have spent in the school, or all the time that we as a class are spending in trying to learn, share, is just incredibly helping me in putting a different perspective at work and in my personal life as well. So I mean, I could go on and on, but then I'll maybe take a pause and pass on to my other panelist.
Thank you so much. And don't worry, we'll come back and probe you more. Hey.
Hi, good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone, whoever you are in the world. It's great to be able to speak to you and to be on this panel. So yeah, I work for a SaaS company, a software as a service company, and I'm based out here in Tokyo, in Japan. So some of the main motivations for me, as I was considering this program, was actually a couple of my colleagues had done the diploma in financial strategy as well, in multiple cohorts over the last 5 or 6 years. So they, gave, very, very good feedback in terms of the learnings that they had, the softer side of the course as well, in terms of, building networks, the friendships that they had built, and also, the fact that it is Oxford. So you get the quality of their education and the name as well. Another main motivation, not just from hearing from my colleagues about the program, was in my company we always talk about continuous personal development. Not to rest on your laurels, to stay curious, to continue to grow and continue to learn. And my experience, over the last 9 months or so in this cohort of DipFS is that you will be challenged a lot, you will learn a lot, and you will grow a lot. So yeah, my motivations was definitely satisfied, throughout the last 9 months or so.
Wonderful, thanks, Hay. And Stephen, last but not least, over to you.
Thanks very much, Gemma. So yes, Stephen Harrison Murphy, I'm the MD at RCSI in Bahrain, so I'm based out in the Middle East. I guess I was a reluctant participant, if I'm being very honest. I have had a long career, of which I joined RCSI back in 2013. Previous to that, I was working in consulting and computer games and various other things. So I kind of done my professional qualifications when I was younger. My boss here was pushing me on a regular basis to kind of follow the MBA route, which I really didn't want to. Like I'm old in comparison to the rest of the panel, and I kind of thought, really at my stage of my career, I don't want to go into an MBA. So he was kind of pushing me quite a lot that having academic qualifications was important, working in an education field. So I was a reluctant applicant. I'm being really, really honest and candid now. But it was possibly the best thing I've ever done in my entire life. Other than get married, have children, things like that. But in terms of academic career and whatever else, it was incredible. And the reason I chose Oxford in particular was the organisational leadership programme was presented to me, and I, being based in the Middle East, lead a fairly large, complex, kind of multicultural team. I thought organisational leadership as a deep dive, as a focus, was really good. And the other thing for me was the delivery model was perfect for my work commitments and balance. Having to travel here and do 4 days intensive kind of study. Although I'm actually slightly jealous now of the updated format with the additional online content and not having to do exams as the first thing that we did every time we arrived. Although I actually really enjoyed that, for being honest. So yeah, they're my motivations. A reluctant applicant.
Thank you, Stephen. That's really useful to hear. Two of the questions people often have coming onto the programme is how will they manage their studies amongst work, and also in what ways will they apply it. Oxford's associated with a very academic environment. Now, what am I actually going to be able to get out of this and apply in my day-to-day job? And it'd be really useful to cover those things off. And I know we've only got a certain amount of time, so I wonder if I could ask Lena and then Hay about managing your time to study, and then maybe Stephen and Ishtiaq about a couple of ways which you've applied and benefited from your study at Oxford. So Lena, shall I come to you first? How did you manage it all while having a job?
Well, the hardest thing was to manage the family, honestly speaking. In terms of commitment, you have like 4-5 modules and they last 1 week. So you just have to take up your calendar and book the time and get away from your day job activities. Because if you try to combine going to meetings, we know that online meetings at work are now the everyday job. So don't do that. Just take your time to dive deeply into the diploma, whatever it is. And this will make it easier later on, so that you don't have to spend so much time preparing for the exams, and it will allow you to take the most of it. This is in terms of advice. Just really decide it, book it, and it's not that much time, really.
Thank you. And everybody does it differently. So, hey, how did you fit it all in?
That's a really good question. It is definitely rather difficult, but I think what it comes down to, first of all, is really expectation setting. Myself and a few of my classmates, our company, had sponsored us. So I think it was about expectation setting of, exactly when it comes to work and work responsibilities, how that would, actually work during the week when you're studying, because it is you are at the school for the whole day, and then there will be activities at night as well. So the expectation of that you will be there and you will be studying, and that yes, that you can get pulled out of course, especially the last couple of years with Zoom and everything, but to really maximize and get the full benefit, regardless of sponsorship or not, you really need to be present. So I think it's expectation setting, and obviously expectation setting if you have a family. I'm a father of 3 kids. I've got other personal responsibilities as well. So really managing that and making sure that my family is on board and supportive of me during the program. I think that's absolutely critical. I think also commitment, as I touched upon, I think commitment is important. You're going to maximize your experience by being present there, and really trying to shut off all of the other things, that might be pulling you, maybe work things as well. So yeah, being able to commit and try to attend all of the sessions as much as you can in person. That's what I found I got the most benefit from. And I think, Gemma, you did mention a little bit before, but when you're not there, when you're not at school, in between modules, you do need to set aside some time to study, to do your pre-reading, to do some of the exercises. I did the Diploma in Financial Strategy, as I already mentioned, and especially when it comes to the corporate finance and the corporate valuation side of things, that you do need to put in the hours. I think people who are wanting to do that course kind of understand that there's a numerical element there. So you do need to, just have a good handle on the time, so that you get the time to study.
Brilliant, thank you. And Stephen, can we come to you next? And I did say about ways that you apply your learning, but if you also want to share advice on how you manage it as well, then do feel free.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly to add on the management of time, we split ourselves into subgroups because we had 72 in our cohort. It was quite a big cohort, and we were from all around the world. So we split ourselves into subgroups and shared some of the reading between ourselves and summarised it. But I think the guys there have kind of emphasised all the things I'd say. Just in terms of how I've applied my learning, I get a little bit kind of over the top, I think, in terms of how I express how much I've learned out of this. But it life-changing in terms of my career, in terms of the way of looking at things. I've now gone on to go to do a professional doctorate, so it kind of, without having done this, I wouldn't have gone that way. But just in terms of how it's helped me professionally, like it just provides structure to the way that I do things. I've been quite successful in my career, fortunately, but this has just kind of brought a lot more structure to it, a lot more understanding. When you're kind of going through change management and you're kind of drawing on Cotter's model and things like that, it's just fantastic to be able to do that and then use that to explain to the team that you're working with why you're doing it and what the benefits will be, and bring them on. Like, I think a classic example for me, just at a real kind of basic level, is the way that I now run meetings is entirely different to where it was before. Much more about kind of psychological safety, understanding that like one of the most huge pieces of learning from the organizational leadership course was on the first day with Professor Sue Dobson asking about imposter syndrome and kind of, who suffers from imposter syndrome, and every single person in the room put their hand up, and all of a sudden this weight is lifted off your shoulders, because you're kind of thinking it's not just me that's like bluffing. It was fantastic, I think, from that perspective, to give you that perspective and whatever else. But yeah, running meetings with psychological safety, ensuring that all the small voices get a large voice, and that, you know, the loudest voice isn't the one that's always heard, and that sort of stuff is brilliant. And I think the biggest compliment I could pay in terms of what it's made for me and back to Oxford is the number of people who I work with who notice the difference in my leadership as a result of it. You know, I think that's fantastic. And I'm not getting paid to be here as a question for that. I'm just really enthusiastic.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I know everybody on the call will also want to hear, you know, some solid examples. So that's great. Thank you. Ishtiaq, are you there? I think we want to ask you, well, about ways you applied your learning, but if you want to share some advice about managing your time as well, then do go ahead. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I do want to kind of paint some picture about how we manage time. So there's no doubt it is very challenging, given that I work full time, and largely 99% of our class works full time. To give an example, maybe our class is very special and unique, but there are 5 colleagues in our class who have actually relocated from different parts of the world to come into Oxford to do this program. I mean, this just shows what Oxford can do. And this is not that people made decisions. Of course, I made a decision. I can talk about myself. I moved from India into the UK just for this course. I know I've been very fortunate that my organization supported me, but there was a reason why I moved, because I wanted to benefit from the ecosystem that Oxford provides. While the courses are only for 5 days on campus, the beauty is that you have a golden pass that you can use and go anywhere in Oxford because you're a student. I actually crave that I could spend more time, but because of my work commitments, I cannot, and therefore that stops me. But if you give me an opportunity, I would spend more and use more time at the university, at the school, in the different departments and colleges, because the beauty is that everywhere you go, people, you know, want to talk to you, want to hear from you, and then you just learn so much more. Of course, you're learning in the class, but you learn so much more outside as well. So that's my personal experience. In terms of application, something very similar that Stephen mentioned, I have not seen changes myself, but then my colleagues, my family, my friends have started to observe that my thought process on things, my conversations have dramatically changed. And I would want to believe and give the credit that it's the environment and the colleagues and the school that I'm currently doing is influencing those changes, because that's the key driver for me at this moment. Yes, I was doing what I'm doing now as well, so the job has not changed, but then my response to the situations that I deal with today is very, very different than what I would have done last year, right? So that's just how impactful this course has been in my life.
Thank you, Ishtiaq. And it brings me on actually to, I guess, a follow-up question for everybody, which is about, you mentioned about your class and how some members of your class relocated to Oxford, yourself being one of them. And it made me reflect on the classes that you're with. And we talked about networks in the presentation. And obviously there's lots of Oxford networks available, but I know from my experience that actually it's your classmates that you have that kind of closest connection with. So I don't know if, hey, we start with you and then we move around. If you can talk about a little bit about the makeup of your class, or how you work together, or what surprised you about that group, that would be your reflections would be great.
Yeah, so in my cohort, it was extremely diverse cohort, not just in terms of the locations where people were from and, you know, where they flew in from. So we had people from like San Francisco, Singapore, Dubai, Istanbul, Miami, so from all over the world. And not just from that, they also had diverse experience. So we didn't just have like the typical like FDs, like financial directors or CFOs. We had like entrepreneurs, we had lawyers, we had someone had the central bank, we had family business people as well. And I think that all of that combination really enriched the learning experience, because you get to hear from different perspectives. You know, everyone has a different perspective, just depending on the background, depending on the industry that they're working in, the climate and the culture that they're working in as well. So yeah, it was extremely beneficial to hear and to be in that sort of melting pot. And what's great about the program is that it's very interactive. You know, you're not just I didn't join the program just so that I could, study from a book and then just, hear it regurgitated back to me. It's very interactive. You ask a lot of questions. You're expected to bring a lot to the table. During the study and during the lectures, so that we can all learn from one another. And yeah, I think as Stephen did mention just now, we also, myself and some of my other, I call them friends now, not just classmates, but we also had a study group. So yeah, during the off time, or even during the time in Oxford, there was a couple of us that got together. We would go through the material together. We would study together, bounce ideas off each other, test one another, sharpen one another. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Great, thanks. Hey, Lena, you're smiling, Lena, so I'm going to come to you next. You sound like you've got a story to tell.
Well, our cohort was and still is amazing, because we are still keeping our communication channels open. There's almost every day someone is sharing something. We keep on we've developed this habit to just post and search when we need information, even completely unrelated to the degree. We reach to each other because there are people from many different industries, many different levels in terms of the way they stand in their organizations. We have people from working in HR, we have people working in tech, we have entrepreneurs, we have almost everything within those 30 people. So you can always ask something, receive advice, receive further advice, and then even further advice. And everyone is always so willing to expand their views, to talk to each other. We've developed this amazing friendship, even though we had the first 2 modules online. I hope now the next DPI will get it all in person. So in person is way better. Really, it's worth flying even from, I don't know, the other part of the world to get to meet those people. This is kind of half of the degree, maybe. So yeah, I'm smiling because we're now arranging a London meeting
as we speak.
As we speak.
Fantastic, Lena.
Yeah,
and our programs next year are
a really lively group.
Expected to attend. So where should we, Stephen, should we come to you? And then Ishtiaq, your network, your classmates, what surprised you? What did you love or not?
Gemma, myself or Ishtiaq first, Gemma?
Stephen first. I'll go after you, Steve.
Okay, no problem at all. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we had, I think, 72 in the class from every single corner of the world. It was fantastic. From all walks of life. I mean, obviously a seniority within their job, but some in public sector, some in IT, some entrepreneurs who'd made a considerable amount of money and were kind of looking to go on to their next venture and that sort of stuff. And as Lena was saying, kind of just sharing information that was related to the course, information outside of the course, whether it be kind of economic information or whatever. I suppose one of the really kind of lasting memories for me, obviously it was 5 years ago now, because it was 2018. But when the US pulled out of Afghanistan, we had one of our classmates was working for the Ministry of Housing in Afghanistan and was evacuated. And we all came round together and kind of, provided support with him in terms of settling in the US and everything else. And I think it was just a real unique occurrence that the class had this kind of eclectic view of the world and was able to help him in such a way. So it's been fantastic. I still meet up on a personal basis, even after 5 years, with a number of different people. Tends to be in the UK and Ireland because that's where I travel to more often. But actually, on the April 1st next year, I'm going to be a groomsman at one of my cohorts, my best friend from the cohort, Brian Hempel's wedding. So yeah, it's kind of they're not classmates anymore. They are truly friends.
That's an amazing story, and I think there's nothing like assessment and deadlines to bring people together, is there? An experience like this, and sharing as well. Ishtiaq, let's come to you. Your class and your reflections.
Sure. I mean, for our class, of course, I think I don't want to also say that everybody is the same, or the commitment is the same, because people come from different backgrounds, different commitments, etc. So we have like 4 study groups based on 4 time zones, given that we have people from Australia, Japan, Caribbean, America, Africa, etc. So we have divided the class into time zone wise groups. So we do studies every week on a Wednesday for at least an hour or 2. Plus, we also very distinctly have agreed that we will come like 2 days before the classes. So our classes start on a Tuesday, but then most people fly in from different parts of the world, either on a Friday or a Saturday ahead of the classes, so that we could get some time together to refresh, review, and read through the pre-readings of the class before every module, which is quite important. So there's like investment with consensus that we have, that, you know, let's invest time together. So it was difficult for first module, but then from second module onwards, we now have a rhythm. Everybody knows the model in which we operate as a class. So there's a bit of a synergy in terms of thought process, etc. So that's working really, really well. In terms of benefits, given the diverse nature of the class, now Oxford, of course, academically where it stands, there's so much that you need to do in terms of pre-reading and input and effort that you need to make, right? So it's not like you take a flight, you come in and you turn up to a class. I mean, you can come up to the class, but the fact is that you will possibly feel left out, because you would then not be able to contribute or belong to the conversation. So you have to put in that extra effort and energy in trying to understand, to be able to contribute effectively in the class. So there are things that are working. There are things that we wish that we knew before the course started, that we could have prepared much better, but then we are where we are. But I think you guys are lucky, because you can maybe connect with your cohort even before the class starts, right? I mean, one gentleman in our group had set up a WhatsApp group a month before the classes started. So I started in March, and we set up the WhatsApp group in February. But then it was like really very cool, because nobody met anybody until we actually met in person in Oxford. But then it is important that, you know, you speak and break that ice, because then you can plan effectively to be able to make the most of the time that you go right from the first module. That is what I would recommend. That is what we would do differently if, let's say, Gemma says, guys, come to the next diploma class for the next year. Then that's how we would prepare for the next next course at Oxford.
Thank you. And you know what, I'm going to take that answer you've just given to a question that's come into my mind, and as our final question, go around everybody in the group, and just ask what. So, you know, we're, you know, want to showcase these programs here today, and we'd love strong people to apply. But let's imagine they've applied and they're on the program. What advice would you give to anybody who's thinking about this program when they arrive in Oxford on their first day? What do you wish somebody would have told you at that point? Hey, shall I come to you first?
Sure. So I was actually just reading a message at the same time. So can you just repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. It's always the way you jump on the person that's not listening. So yeah, don't worry. What advice would you give somebody who's just arrived in Oxford? So say people on this call now, they've successfully applied, they're here on their first day at the start of their program. What do you wish somebody had said to you or told you at that point?
Cherish every moment, because the time goes by very, very quickly. So I just finished my last module, literally last week. Yes, I just came back like 10 days ago, and yeah, it was in a sense like I'd finished, which was good, but at the same time there was always like, oh, I wish I had gone to the colleges a bit more. I wish I had spent a bit more time with my cohort. I wish I could go to some more of these there was like talks or things that would happen. So like I actually went to one, I think, during my second module in March, I think just when the start of the conflict was happening in Ukraine. And there's all of these things that are happening around the different colleges and campuses that you can fully make use of. So yeah, I would really recommend that when you're in Oxford, yeah, make use of, you know, I went running in the mornings across like the Christchurch Meadow just to see like the sunrise, having breakfast with my cohort in some of the different colleges that they were staying in. Yeah, just cherish every moment that you're there. Try to visit as many places and develop and connect with people that you're there. One question that I was asked that I do want to answer, I think there was a question about if you were interested in doing the DipFS course, which is the one that I did, the Diploma in Financial Strategy, you don't have a financial background, that's okay. So, you know, even though I'm in FP&A, so financial planning and analysis, I didn't have a financial background. I did a few courses here and there, but even if you don't have an extremely strong finance background, it's okay. As I said, like we had, you know, lawyers, you know, that had joined our course as well. You might want to read a little bit up on corporate finance. You will be provided the books. You will be provided the material, of course, like, you know, weeks and months in advance. But yeah, if you are interested in DipFS, maybe try to brush up on a little bit on corporate finance and a little bit on valuations. But you know, it's fantastic teachers that they will teach you.
Thanks, Hey, that's really helpful. Stephen, we'll come to you, and then Lena.
I guess it's really unfair because Hayes just like said everything I probably would say. You know, it's fantastic. I couldn't agree more. It's just about absorbing every single second of every single day and making the most out of it. I guess one of the things I think is really useful. It's 4 days, very intensive. So kind of the pre-reading is really important. If you haven't done that pre-reading, then you're not ready for the in-depth conversations. And so I always did it, but I would definitely say as a piece of advice would be to kind of do that. But you can always share that pre-reading amongst the cohort once you've met them. But just to kind of the whole Oxford experience is just out of this world. And I'm doing my prof doc now at somewhere else, which I won't mention where, but it's just not the same level, you know, in terms of experience and everything else. So I'll make every minute of it. Absolutely.
Thanks, Stephen. This is going to get more and more difficult now, isn't it? Lena, over to you.
Yeah. So I can totally relate to both my colleagues here. What's left unsaid? I wish someone had told me to be braver when I first stepped into that room. Or online. It was the first time it was online, but I was really scared because I didn't know what will happen. What are those people? So don't worry, the people are the same as you are, even though the cohort is really, really diverse, as we already said, but they are there for the same reasons, more or less. They want to learn, they want to make friends, they want to exchange ideas. So really start building those friendships and that community from the first day, because time flies, and it feels like it goes away in a second. I mean, it's not enough. You should enlarge those programs, by the way, like put in 2-3 modules additionally.
Yeah, I'm really feeling for Hay with his final module so recently.
Yeah, so sorry.
But you'll have a final assignment to get you through, Hay, so that'll take that'll help.
Also, one thing,
Ishtiaq, I think you reflected before, but any final words before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I think I already mentioned about the golden pass. Had somebody told me that you have a golden pass with your ID of studying at Oxford, I would have utilized it much better, which I think is a piece of advice or learning that I've had over the course of the course. The other thing that I would say is that this is not like any other course that, you know, you're just doing it as a side hustle. It is, I mean, I will acknowledge it is both challenging and academically very, very intense. So if you are committing to it, give it your 100%. This can be life-changing.
Thank you so much. Thank to all of you. It was fantastic advice. You've given up your time. I know it's because you're passionate about your programs, but also you'll, you know, be thinking of other people who were in your shoes previously and all the things that they were thinking. So we're incredibly thankful to you. And I know we've had lots of messages coming in to say other people, you know, in the call are as well. We'll wrap up now. For all of those that have joined us today, from wherever you are, thank you so much. You've seen the details of the recruitment and admissions team. You may already be in touch with them. If you're not, please do reach out. We're happy to chat through your suitability, details about particular programs. But all it remains for me to say is thank you to everybody, including my colleagues here, Kate, Laura, Marta and Joe, who have been typing away in the background, answering lots of questions and doing lots of things to set us up today. So thank you so much to everybody. Enjoy the rest of your time, and good to see you all. Bye-bye.